Part 1. The sensor station hummed quietly in the darkness of space. Zrathkon sat at his console, watching the screens like he did every day. He had worked this job for 12 years now, and nothing exciting ever happened. The Calthron Dominion controlled this part of space, and nobody dared to challenge them. Today started like any other day. Zrathkon sipped his morning drink and checked the sensor readings. Asteroids drifted through the nearby nebula. A few trading ships moved along the approved routes. Everything was normal and boring. Then his screen flashed red. Zrathkon nearly dropped his drink. Red alerts were rare. Red alerts meant something was very wrong. He leaned forward and studied the readings carefully. His 3 hearts began to beat faster as he realized what he was seeing. There was a ship out there. A big ship. A ship that should not exist. The energy coming from this vessel was incredible. It was 3 times larger than the biggest Calthron warship, yet it moved like a small fighter craft. The sensors tried to identify it, but nothing matched. This ship was not in any database. It was completely unknown. Zrathkon's hand shook as he reached for the communication device. He had to tell Commander Velshaw immediately. She would not be happy about being disturbed during her rest time, but this could not wait. Commander Velshaw arrived at the sensor station quickly. Her scales were dark with irritation. She did not like being woken up for false alarms. Zrathkon pointed at the screen without saying anything. Sometimes silence spoke louder than words. Velshaw looked at the screen. Her scales changed color, fading to a pale shade that Zrathkon had never seen before. She was afraid. Commander Velshaw, who had fought in 6 wars and never showed fear, was genuinely terrified. The ship on the screen was massive and dangerous looking. Its hull was black, absorbing light and sensor beams instead of reflecting them. Along its sides were weapon ports, dozens of them, each one large enough to fire devastating blasts. The ship looked like it was built for one purpose only: war. But what made Velshaw truly afraid was the symbol painted on the hull. It was a circle with white stars on a blue background. Red and white stripes spread out from the circle. Below the symbol were letters in a language that the translator immediately recognized. UNS Defiant, human letters. Human language, human ship. Velshaw grabbed the emergency communication panel. Her claws clicked against the controls as she entered the priority code for High Command. Within seconds, she was connected to the Dominion's Central Military Headquarters. The face of Admiral Krelton appeared on the screen. He looked annoyed at being contacted through emergency channels. That annoyance vanished when Velshaw spoke 3 simple words. The humans are here. The Admiral's expression changed completely. Fear, surprise, and anger flashed across his features in quick succession. He leaned closer to his screen as if he could not believe what he just heard. "Confirm that statement, Commander," he said slowly. "Confirmed, Admiral. We have visual identification. Human vessel, designation UNS Defiant. Current position is inside our border zone. The ship is not responding to hails and is proceeding deeper into our territory." The Admiral was silent for a long moment. Everyone in the Dominion knew about humans. Everyone knew the stories. 100 years ago, the Galactic Council had sent an expedition to the human homeworld. That expedition never came back. The humans had destroyed every single ship, killing thousands of Council members. After that incident, the Council declared human space off limits. They built sensor networks around Earth's solar system to make sure humans stayed trapped there. The humans were considered too dangerous, too violent, too unpredictable to be allowed into the wider galaxy. And now somehow, they were here. "Send fleet to intercept," Admiral Krelton ordered. "Do not engage unless fired upon. We need to understand what we are dealing with before we start a fight we might not win." The transmission ended. Velshaw turned to her crew and began issuing orders. Within minutes, 9 Calthron cruisers were moving toward the human ship. Each cruiser carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Surely that would be enough to stop one human vessel. But Velshaw was not so certain. She kept thinking about those old reports, the ones from the Proxima incident. The human ships back then had been primitive by galactic standards. Yet they had fought with a ferocity that shocked everyone. They used tactics that no other species would consider. They took risks that seemed insane. And they won. If humans had been dangerous 100 years ago with primitive technology, what were they capable of now? On board the Defiant, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge with a calm expression. He was a tall man with gray hair and steady eyes. He had commanded ships for 20 years and nothing rattled him anymore. His second-in-command, Lisa Grant, walked over with a data pad. She was younger than Morrison, but just as experienced. She had helped plan this entire mission from the beginning. "They have spotted us, sir," Lisa reported. "The station just sent a priority message to their headquarters."
"Should we try to hide?"
Morrison shook his head. "No, Commander. We came here to be seen. Let them report us. Let them send their fleets. Let them panic and argue about what to do. That is exactly what we want." Lisa smiled slightly. "The diplomats back home are going to be very angry with you." "The diplomats can complain all they want after we succeed," Morrison replied. "Earth has been a prisoner for too long. We have stayed in our solar system for a century because the Council told us to. We have followed their rules and respected their borders. And what did it get us? Nothing. They still treat us like dangerous animals that need to be caged." He turned to look at the main view screen, where the Calthron station was visible in the distance. "Well, this animal is done with its cage. It is time for humanity to take its place in the galaxy, whether the Council likes it or not." The Defiant's engines glowed brighter. The huge warship began to move deeper into Calthron space, heading toward the heart of the Dominion. Every second took it further from Earth and closer to a confrontation that could change everything. Behind them, Zarathkon watched the human ship disappear into the darkness. He whispered a prayer to any gods who might listen, because if humans were willing to bring a warship into Council territory, if they were willing to break the treaty that had kept them isolated for so long, then the galaxy was about to change in ways nobody could predict. The Galactic Council chamber was in chaos. Representatives from 47 different species appeared as holograms around the circular room. Some were shouting. Others were making sounds that the translation computers struggled to understand. The air was thick with fear and anger. Ambassador Krell slammed his appendage on the podium. He was a Vraxian, and his species valued order above all else. This situation was the opposite of order. "This is completely unacceptable," Krell declared, his voice booming through the chamber. "The humans agreed to stay in their system. They signed documents. They gave their word. Now they have broken that promise and invaded Dominion space with a warship." Counselor Threshna spread her wings in agitation. She was a Meridian, and her people believed in fairness and truth. "They signed nothing, Ambassador Krell. We forced those restrictions on them. We told them they could not leave their solar system because we were afraid of what they might do. We trapped them like prisoners. We had good reasons," snapped Trademaster Shulot. His people, the Calthron, were the ones whose space had been violated. The humans destroyed an entire expedition fleet. They killed thousands of council members without hesitation. They proved they were too dangerous to be trusted. They defended their home, Threshna shot back. That expedition was armed. It was setting up weapons in their system without permission. The humans had every right to protect themselves. The argument continued, getting louder and more heated. High Chancellor Morden, the oldest and wisest member of the council, finally raised his crystalline hand for silence. The chamber gradually quieted down, though the tension remained. Mordan had lived for over 1,000 years. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had witnessed wars that destroyed entire star systems. He spoke with the weight of all that experience behind his words. "We must remain calm and think clearly," Morden said. "What exactly do we know about this ship?" The main display activated, showing a blurry image of the Defiant. Even through the poor quality of the long-range scan, the ship looked deadly. Its dark hull and massive weapons made it clear that this was a vessel built for combat. A military analyst named Velthar stepped forward. He was a Zarkon, and his species specialized in warfare and tactics. "The ship is called UNS Defiant. According to our records, UNS stands for United Nations Starship. It appears to be their largest military vessel. Its weapons and shields are far more advanced than what we expected humans to possess." "How is that possible?" Krell demanded. "We have sensors watching their entire solar system. We would have seen them building something this big." Threshna spoke up quietly. "Unless they built it somewhere we were not watching. Humans have mining operations throughout their system. They have bases on asteroids and on their outer planets. Who knows what they have been building while we congratulated ourselves on keeping them contained." The implications of that statement hit everyone hard. If humans had one ship like this, they might have more, many more. The galaxy could be looking at an entire human fleet, ready to challenge the established order. Julot's voice dropped to a dangerous tone. "If they have a fleet, this could mean war. The humans might be preparing to attack Council space. A new voice interrupted the discussion. Or maybe you are all panicking over nothing. Everyone turned to look at the speaker. Ambassador Helen Carter stood in her hologram projection, arms crossed. She was Earth's representative to the Council, though her position had been mostly meaningless for the past century. Humans had no real voice in Council decisions until now. High Chancellor Mordan acknowledged her with a nod. Ambassador Carter, perhaps you can explain what your government is doing? Helen's expression was calm but firm. I would love to explain, Chancellor, except I have no idea what you are talking about. The Defiant is not registered with any Earth government that I know of. The United Nations Space Command does not exist anymore. It was disbanded 15 years ago. That caused another wave of confusion and concern throughout the chamber. If Earth's government did not control this ship, then who did? Then who commands this vessel? Krell asked, his voice sharp with suspicion. Helen's smile was thin and cold. That is an excellent question. Maybe you should ask the ship's captain directly instead of sending war fleets to intercept them. Because if the Defiant truly is operating without government oversight, then threatening them might have consequences none of us want to face. Julot bristled at her tone. Is that a threat, Ambassador? It is a warning, Helen corrected. You seem to have forgotten something important while you were busy keeping humanity locked up for the past century. We do not like being told what to do. We do not respond well to ultimatums, and we have very long memories when it comes to species who treat us like children who need to be managed. She leaned forward, her eyes hard as steel. So before you start preparing for war, before you mobilize your fleets and write your declarations, maybe consider something. Maybe consider that the captain of the Defiant wants you to attack. Some humans believe you have been looking for an excuse to eliminate us completely. Do not give them the evidence they need to prove that belief is correct. The council chamber fell into stunned silence. Helen's hologram flickered and disappeared, leaving the representative staring at empty space. She is bluffing, Krell said finally, but he did not sound convinced. Mordan studied the image of the Defiant on the main display. The ship moved through space with confidence like a predator that knew it owned the territory. Perhaps she is bluffing, Mordan said softly. But what if she is telling the truth? What if attacking that ship is exactly what they want us to do? The question hung in the air unanswered. Throughout the galaxy, Council members began to mobilize their forces, preparing for the possibility of conflict with humanity. Fleets moved toward strategic positions. Weapons were charged and ready. Diplomatic channels buzzed with urgent communications. But beneath all the military preparation was a current of fear. Because nobody truly knew what humans were capable of anymore. 100 years ago they had been primitive but fierce. Now they had advanced technology and at least one warship powerful enough to move freely through heavily defended space. If war came, how many more ships like the Defiant would appear? How many human vessels were hiding in the darkness, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves? And most importantly, could the Council actually win a war against a species that had spent a century preparing for this exact moment? These questions troubled Mordan as he dismissed the Council session. He returned to his private chambers and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Defiant was moving closer to the heart of Council space. Somewhere out there, humanity was making its move. Mordan had lived for over 1,000 years, but he could not remember a time when the galaxy felt quite this uncertain. Change was coming. He could feel it in his ancient bones. The only question was whether that change would come through war or through some other means. He hoped for the latter. The galaxy had seen enough war, but hoping was not the same as knowing, and Mordan knew that the next few days would determine the future of human council relations for generations to come. The Defiant continued its journey, and the galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what would happen when an unstoppable human will met the immovable force of galactic law. The Calthran patrol fleet consisted of 9 heavy cruisers and 18 escort frigates. They formed a standard blockade formation that had successfully stopped unauthorized vessels for thousands of years. Captain Velthar commanded the fleet from the bridge of his flagship, the Dominant Light. He watched the approaching human vessel with growing concern. Velthar had fought in many battles during his long career. He had faced pirates, rebels, and even rogue military forces from other species. But this was different. This was a human. Ship and humans had a reputation that made even experienced commanders nervous. All ships, this is Fleet Command. Velthar transmitted to his fleet. Charge weapons, but do not fire unless I give the order. We will try one more time to communicate with them. He switched to the channel aimed at the human ship. Unknown human. Vessel. This is Captain Velthar of the Calthron Dominion Fleet. You are violating multiple galactic treaties in Dominion territory. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded, or we will disable your ship and take you into custody by force. Silence followed his words. Velthar waited, his scales rippling with tension. Then the communication channel crackled to life. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the UNS Defiant. I appreciate the warm welcome, Captain Velthar, but I am afraid we will have to decline your invitation. We are on a schedule. The human's voice was calm, almost friendly. That somehow made Velthar more nervous. A captain who stayed calm when facing 27 warships was either very confident or completely insane. This is not a negotiation, human, Velthar said firmly. You have violated sovereign territory. Stand down or be fired upon. Morrison's reply came quickly. See, that is where we have a philosophical difference, Captain. From where I am sitting, the galaxy does not belong to the Calthron Dominion or the Galactic Council. It belongs to anyone with the courage and capability to explore it, and humanity has both of those things in abundance. Velthar felt his patience wearing thin. Your courage is irrelevant when facing superior firepower. You are outnumbered nearly 20-1. Your vessel, however advanced, cannot hope to survive against our combined fleet. You are probably right, Morrison agreed easily. But here is the thing, Captain. I do not need to beat your fleet. I just need to make you reconsider whether stopping me is worth the cost. On the Defiance Bridge, Lisa Grant watched the tactical display with practiced calm. She had been Morrison's second in command for 5 years, and she trusted his judgment completely, even when that judgment seemed to be leading them into a battle they could not win. They are powering weapons, sir, Lisa reported. Multiple targeting locks. They are serious about this. Morrison nodded without taking his eyes off the main view screen. So are we, Commander. Raise shields. Charge main batteries. But do not fire first under any circumstances. If shooting starts, I want it absolutely clear who pulled the trigger. Understood, sir. The Defiant's energy signature suddenly spiked as its defensive systems came fully online. The shields that surrounded the ship began to glow faintly, visible even to the naked eye. It was an impressive display of power. Monet, the dominant light. Velthar's tactical officer studied her screens with growing alarm. Captain, those shields are unlike anything in our database. The energy density is at least 4 times our standard military rating. If we fire on them, I'm not certain our weapons will penetrate. Velthar felt a cold sensation in his chest. How is that possible? Our intelligence reports said human shield technology was decades behind ours. His first officer spoke quietly. Our intelligence reports also said the humans did not have warships at all, sir. That was an excellent point. Clearly their intelligence on humanity was badly outdated. The question was, what else were they wrong about? Morrison's voice came through the communication channel again. Captain Velthar, I'm going to make this very simple for you. You can let us pass and we will continue on our way with no casualties on either side. Or you can attack, and we will respond. When we respond, when my weapons officers start targeting your ships, you need to ask yourself a question. Velthar waited, but Morrison did not continue immediately. What question? The Calthron captain finally asked. Why would humans build a ship like this and send it alone into hostile territory unless they were absolutely certain it could survive? The bridge of the dominant light fell completely silent. Every officer stopped what they were doing and looked at their captain. It was indeed an excellent question, a terrifying question. Velthar's tactical officer spoke up hesitantly. It could be a bluff, sir. They might be hoping to scare us into backing down. Perhaps, Velthar acknowledged. But bluffs do not explain those shields, or that power output, or the fact that they crossed half the sector to get here without being detected until they chose to be seen. He thought about the situation carefully. He could order his fleet to attack. They would probably win, though the cost would be high. Some of his ships would be destroyed. Many of his crew would die. And for what? to stop one human vessel from passing through their space. But if he let them pass, he would be seen as weak. He would be criticized for failing to enforce Dominion authority. His career might be over. Velthar made his decision based not on his career but on the lives of his crew. "Fleet command to all ships," he announced. "Hold position but do not fire. I repeat, hold fire." His first officer looked shocked. "Sir, we have clear superiority." "We have assumed superiority," Velthar corrected. "There is a difference, and I am not willing to sacrifice this fleet to prove a point when we do not fully understand what we are facing." He opened the channel to the Defiant one more time. "Captain Morrison, I am going to report this incident to my superiors. They will decide how to respond to your violation of our space, but I will not fire on your ship today." There was a brief pause before Morrison replied. "I appreciate that, Captain. For what it is worth, I respect your judgment. Not many commanders would choose wisdom over pride." The Defiant's engines flared brighter, and the massive warship began to move forward. It passed through the Calthron formation like a shark swimming through a school of small fish. Not a single shot was fired. The human vessel moved past them all and continued on its course toward Council space. Velthar watched it go with mixed feelings. Had he just made the wisest decision of his career, or had he shown cowardice in the face of the enemy? His first officer stood beside him, staring at the departing human ship. "They are heading toward the Council's core systems," she observed. "Toward the heart of galactic civilization." "I know," Velthar said quietly. "Send word ahead through all channels. Tell them the humans are coming, and they are not stopping for anyone." As the Defiant disappeared into the distance, Velthar could not shake the feeling that something fundamental had just changed. The humans had been locked away for a century, treated like dangerous children who needed to be controlled. But they were children no longer. They had built advanced warships in secret. They had developed technology that surpassed Council expectations. And they had the confidence to send a single vessel deep into hostile territory, daring anyone to stop them. What did that say about what else humanity had been doing during their century of isolation? What other surprises were waiting to be revealed? Velthar did not know the answers to those questions, but he suspected the entire galaxy was about to find out. The age of human containment was ending. What would replace it remained to be seen. The Defiant reached the neutral zone between Calthron space and Council territory 3 days after the confrontation with the patrol fleet. Captain Morrison had used that time to let his crew rest and prepare for what came next. Because what came next would determine whether humanity's bold plan succeeded or failed completely. Morrison stood on the bridge, looking at the star charts displayed on the main screen. They were positioned exactly where they needed to be, at coordinates that had been calculated months ago back on Earth. This location was perfect for their purposes. From here, their transmission would reach dozens of star systems. "Communications, are we in position?" Morrison asked. Lieutenant Chris Baker looked up from his station and nodded. "Yes, sir. We are at the exact coordinates. The communication array is fully powered and ready to broadcast." "Then let us make history, Lieutenant. Send the message on all frequencies, maximum power. Make sure everyone within 100 light years can hear us." Chris entered the commands into his console. The Defiant's powerful communication array began to transmit a pre-recorded message. It was not from Morrison, however. This message came from someone whose voice carried far more authority than any military captain. "This is President Maria Chen of the United Earth Coalition, and I speak not just for my government but for all of humanity. Throughout dozens of star systems, on space stations and ships and planetary settlements, beings of 100 different species stopped what they were doing. They listened as a human leader addressed the galaxy directly for the first time in over a century. For 107 years, humanity has accepted the restrictions placed upon us by the Galactic Council. We were confined to our home system. We were forbidden from establishing colonies or exploring beyond the boundaries you set. You called it the Containment Accords. We called it a prison." President Chen's voice was calm and measured, but there was strength beneath the polite words. "You justified this imprisonment by saying we were dangerous. You pointed to the incident at Proxima Station, where human ships destroyed a Council expedition. What you never told the public was that your expedition was trying to install weapons platforms in our solar system without asking permission. What you never admitted was that we defended ourselves against an unprovoked military invasion. On dozens of worlds, Council representatives scrambled to respond, to deny these claims, but the message continued relentlessly. We accepted your quarantine because we hoped, perhaps foolishly, that you would eventually recognize your mistake. We believed that given time, you would extend a hand of partnership instead of treating us like prisoners. We were wrong, so we have decided to extend our own hand, on our own terms. The transmission included visual data showing star maps. Lights appeared across the display, marking locations throughout human-explored space. Not just Earth's solar system, but dozens of other places. Hidden bases, secret construction facilities, mining colonies on distant asteroids. All of them had been concealed from Council sensors through careful planning and patient work. The UNS Defiant is not alone, President Chen continued. It is the first of 37 vessels in humanity's exploration fleet. We have been building, learning, and preparing for this moment for decades. We are not seeking war. We are not looking for conquest. We are seeking the same right that every other species in this galaxy enjoys: the right to explore, the right to expand, the right to build a future among the stars. The message showed images of human families preparing to board colony ships, children playing in zero-gravity training facilities, scientists examining data about distant worlds. It was a deliberate contrast to the military might represented by the Defiant. We are transmitting the coordinates of 16 uninhabited star systems that we intend to settle. We are providing detailed scans, showing that these worlds have no native intelligent life and no existing territorial claims by any Council species. We are following your own protocols for colonization, the same protocols you have denied us the right to use. President Chen leaned forward in the recording, her expression becoming harder and more determined. But make no mistake about our intentions. We are not asking for your permission. We are informing you of our plans. If you choose to respond with force, we will defend ourselves and our colonists. If you choose to respond with diplomacy and negotiation, we will meet you in good faith. The choice is entirely yours to make. The message ended, but its impact was just beginning. On the bridge of the Defiant, Morrison watched as response messages started flooding in from across the sector. Some were angry and threatening. Some were frightened and confused. A few, surprisingly, were supportive and even encouraging. "Sir, we are being hailed by the Council's diplomatic corps," Lisa reported from her station. "They are requesting immediate communication with you." Morrison took a deep breath. This was it, the moment of truth. "Put them through, Commander." Ambassador Helen Carter appeared on the main view screen. She looked exhausted, like she had not slept in days. "Captain Morrison, do you have any idea what you have just done?" "I have given Earth a voice, Ambassador. Something we should have had a century ago." Helen closed her eyes briefly. "You have created a crisis that could lead to war. The Council is in an uproar. Half of them want to send fleets to destroy the Defiant immediately. The other half are arguing about whether that would make things better or worse." "Only if the Council chooses war," Morrison replied calmly. "We have laid out our case clearly. We have provided evidence of our claims. We have offered to expand peacefully into unclaimed space. If they attack us after all that, then the entire galaxy will see them for what they truly are: tyrants who cannot tolerate anyone challenging their authority." Helen was quiet for a long moment, studying Morrison's face through the view screen. "You know I have to condemn this action publicly. The official Earth government has to maintain deniability about what you are doing." "I know that is the plan," Morrison acknowledged. "That is why we are the United Nations Starship Defiant and not a United Earth Coalition vessel. Plausible deniability for everyone involved. If this goes wrong, your government can claim we were rogues acting without authorization. And if it goes right?" Helen asked quietly. Morrison allowed himself a small smile. "Then humanity takes its rightful place among the stars, and history remembers this as the day we stopped asking permission to be free." The transmission ended. Morrison remained standing on the bridge looking out at the stars displayed on the view screen. Somewhere out there, the Council was debating humanity's message. Military fleets were possibly moving into position. Diplomats were arguing about how to respond. The future of humanity's expansion into space hung in the balance. Morrison activated the ship-wide communication channel. "All hands, this is the captain speaking. We have just sent our message to the galaxy. We have crossed the point of no return. Whatever happens next, I want you to know that you have all served with honor and courage. Because of what we have accomplished here, Earth will never be imprisoned again. The cage has been opened and we are stepping out into the light. On the bridge, the crew stood a little straighter. Pride and apprehension mixed together on their faces as they waited to see how the galaxy would respond to humanity's declaration of independence. Morrison knew the wait would not be long. The Council would respond quickly one way or another. They would either accept humanity's right to expand, or they would try to crush this rebellion before it could spread. Either way, the Defiant and its crew were ready. They had come too far and risked too much to turn back now. Humanity's future among the stars would be decided in the next few days, and Morrison was determined to make sure that future was one of freedom, not continued imprisonment. The Galactic Council's response took 3 days to prepare, and those 3 days were the longest of Jake Morrison's career. The Defiant maintained its position in neutral space, neither advancing nor retreating. Meanwhile, the diplomatic equivalent of a storm raged across Council communication channels. Finally, High Chancellor Morden called for a formal assembly. This time it would be broadcast publicly across all Council space. Every species would hear the decision that was made, including humanity. Morrison, Lisa, and the senior staff gathered on the bridge to watch the transmission. On the main screen, Mordan's ancient crystalline form appeared at the central podium. The Council has spent these past days in deep deliberation regarding humanity's declaration, Mordan began, his voice carrying across countless worlds. We have reviewed the evidence that was presented. We have considered the arguments that were made, and we have reached our decision. Morrison felt his hand tighten on the armrest of his command chair. This was the moment that would determine everything. War or peace, freedom or continued imprisonment. The future of humanity hung on whatever words came next. The containment accords were established in response to what we perceived as humanity's aggressive and dangerous nature, Mordan continued. We believed that a species capable of destroying an entire Council expedition was not ready to join our community. But in reviewing the classified records of that incident, records which have now been made public by order of this assembly, it has become clear that the complete truth was not shared with the Council at the time of those events. That statement caused ripples of surprise throughout Council space. Morrison leaned forward, hardly daring to breathe. The expedition to the human solar system was equipped with military weapons platforms. It was conducting armed reconnaissance without following proper diplomatic protocols. The human response, while devastating and tragic, was legally defensible as an act of self-defense under our own Council laws. Mordan paused, letting those words sink in across the galaxy. Furthermore, humanity's current expansion plans into unclaimed systems follow all established Council protocols precisely. They have identified worlds with no native intelligent life and no existing territorial claims. They have provided detailed surveys showing these worlds are suitable for settlement. Under our own laws, they have every right to colonize these systems. Morrison felt hope rising in his chest. This was going better than he had dared to imagine. Lisa caught his eye and gave him a slight nod of encouragement. However, Morden continued, and Morrison's hope flickered with uncertainty. The manner in which humanity chose to announce their intentions is deeply problematic. Building a military fleet in secret, violating Calthron territorial space, broadcasting what amounts to an ultimatum to the entire galaxy. These actions show a disregard for diplomatic process that we cannot simply ignore. The Chancellor's crystalline form seemed to glow slightly brighter. Therefore, the Council has decided on the following resolution. The containment accords are hereby officially dissolved. Humanity is granted full membership status in the Galactic Council, with all the rights and responsibilities that such membership entails. The 16 systems identified in President Chen's message are recognized as legitimate human colonization territories. Cheers erupted across the Defiance Bridge before anyone could stop themselves. Morrison held up his hand for silence as Mordan continued speaking. But in exchange for this recognition, Earth must agree to 3 specific conditions. First, detailed information about your military capabilities must be shared with Council Defense Command for strategic planning purposes. We need to know what forces exist to properly coordinate galactic defense. Second, Captain Morrison and the crew of the Defiant must submit to a formal inquiry regarding the violation of Calthron space. Actions have consequences even when those actions ultimately lead to positive outcomes. And third, Earth must commit to participating in Council defense operations if the need arises. We are not simply granting you freedom to explore. We are asking you to share in the responsibility of protecting this galaxy from external threats." Morrison nodded slowly. It was a fair agreement. More than fair, actually. They were being welcomed into the galactic community, rather than punished for their defiance. "Captain Morrison," Mordan addressed him directly through the transmission, "you took an enormous risk with your actions. You gambled that the Council would choose justice over pride, reason over reaction. You gambled not just with your own life, but with the future of your entire species. I hope you truly understand the magnitude of what you have done." Morrison stood from his command chair and faced the view screen. "I do understand, Chancellor, and I accept full responsibility for my actions. I will submit to your inquiry, and I will accept whatever consequences you determine are appropriate. I suspect those consequences will be less severe than you fear," Mordan said, and there seemed to be something like amusement in his ancient voice. "After all, Captain Velthar of the Calthron fleet chose not to fire upon you when he had the opportunity. That suggests he understood something important about humans, something we all need to understand if we are to move forward together." "What is that, sir?" Morrison asked. "That yours is not a species that accepts cages, regardless of how well-intentioned those cages might be. And perhaps the galaxy is better for having such a species among us. Someone to challenge our assumptions and push us to be better than we have been." The transmission ended. For a moment, the bridge was completely silent. Then Chris Baker let out a whoop of joy from his communication station, and suddenly the entire crew was celebrating. They had done it. Against all odds, they had actually succeeded. Lisa stepped up beside Morrison with a rare smile on her face. "Congratulations, sir. You just freed humanity from a century of imprisonment." "We freed humanity," Morrison corrected her gently. "Every person on this ship, everyone who worked in secret for decades to build our fleet, everyone who believed Earth deserved better treatment. This victory belongs to all of them, not just to me." He turned to address his crew who had gathered on the bridge to hear his words. "The Defiant was built to prove a single point, that humanity would not stay contained, that we would find a way to reach the stars no matter what obstacles were placed in our path. Today we have proven that point beyond any doubt. But now comes the harder work. Now we have to prove that we deserve the chance we have been given." 3 months later, the first human colony ships departed for the newly opened star systems. They were escorted by vessels from the Defiant's sister ships, no longer hiding in the shadows but flying openly with Earth's flag displayed proudly on their hulls. Jake Morrison stood in the observation deck of the UNS Defiant, watching the colony ships pass by on their journey to new worlds. Beside him, Ambassador Helen Carter had come aboard for the ceremonial departure. "When I first heard what you had done, I thought you were completely insane," Helen admitted quietly. "I was certain you had started a war that would end with Earth being destroyed." "I had good advisors," Morrison replied. "People who understood that sometimes you have to risk everything to gain anything meaningful, and people who believed that humanity was worth taking that risk. Well, your gamble paid off in ways I never expected," Helen said. "Earth has full council membership now. We have colonies spreading across multiple star systems. Trade agreements are being negotiated. Cultural exchanges are being planned. And we have the Defiant to thank for making it all possible." Morrison shook his head. "Do not thank the Defiant. Thank every human who refused to accept that we were meant to be prisoners in our own solar system. Thank every scientist who worked in secret, every engineer who built our ships, every dreamer who looked at the stars and refused to believe they were forever out of reach." He smiled as the last colony ship activated its faster-than-light drive and disappeared in a flash of brilliant light. "The Council told us we were too dangerous, too aggressive, too unpredictable to be trusted with access to the galaxy. Maybe we are all of those things. But we are also determined, creative, and absolutely unwilling to accept being told what we cannot do. And that, Ambassador, is why humanity will not just survive among the stars. We will thrive out here." As the Defiant turned toward its next assignment, a patrol route along the borders of the new human territories, Morrison thought about how far they had come. A century of forced containment had ended not with war but with recognition and acceptance. Not through submission, but through strength combined with wisdom. Humanity had been detected by alien sensors and had responded not with fear, but with courage and determination. And in doing so, they had changed the galaxy in fundamental ways. The chaos that followed that initial detection had transformed into a new order, an order where Earth stood as an equal partner among the stars, no longer asking for permission but claiming their rightful place in the cosmic community. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, other species watched humanity's expansion with respect, wariness, and perhaps a touch of admiration for a species that had refused to accept their cage and had